And 3, 2, 1. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, the Lo-Fi Horror Guy. Welcome to another episode of the Lo-Fi Horror Guys growing on you live. Today, we're going to be having on my dude, Andy Nelson. Holy moly. I'm very excited. This is going to be sick. My man, Andy, we got Belonger, Like Rats, Too Sweet, Weekend Nachos. My man is a producer in his own right. Has his name all over, just tons of different things. The Ingrown record, which was one of my favorite things that happened this year, along with so many other things. He's kind of like one of the names right now where you buy a hardcore record and it's like, it seems like it's just one of four kind of rotating names of just people that are absolutely fucking killing hardcore in general production. And Andy is certainly that. A really cool thing that we are going to be, kind of focusing on today and kind of digging further into is he did the scoring for a new movie called An Intrusion, which is out now. Via streaming, any sort of services that you're looking for there. But as well as they had a limited run in multiple theaters. I think that has just recently wrapped up, finished. But so cool. Just digging into some of the eeriness, the awesome feeling, the creepiness, the grittiness that kind of comes with that movie, and the job that Andy did along with that. So I'm really excited to dig into musical interests as well, just because of his long history with hardcore and punk and metal in general, and the Chicago hardcore scene in general, just with Weekend Nachos and digging into a couple of covers that Weekend Nachos did. They did something which I'm really excited to dig into and talk to him about. A very odd selection, and I'd like to see kind of what the origins were of how that came about. His interests early on, being a young man, kind of, getting into music in general, and then the heavier music as well. And then, just a lot of focus going into what went into, his first time scoring a movie. Really big deal. I don't honestly know if I got selected to take on such a task, if I would even know what the hell to do or where to start. So, hopefully digging into maybe some tools, maybe some utensils that he used, some things outside of what, a natural instrument might have been to do some of the scoring. But so sick. I'm really excited, and we're going to get my man Andy joined up here. Invite. Let's see. Just brush my teeth. Can make sure I don't have shit in my face. All right,
Hey,
Andy,
what's up, man?
what's up, dude?
How's it going?
Man, let me say, I appreciate you first and foremost coming on today and taking the time. So sick, my man. I appreciate this, and very much looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome, man. Me too.
Hell yeah. All right. So, here on Growing on You Live, typically what we do is we kind of, dig into some earlier interests, personal interests, different things, yourself, that you love, and then kind of divulging into how you got into music yourself. But then we're also going to be talking about this movie that you scored for a first time, and kind of the endeavor of taking that on. And I'm sure what an experience that was. So I'm very excited to dig in here with some of this stuff, my man.
Yeah, man. Sounds great.
All right, we're gonna start off here. Just as a young man, certain bands, songs, albums, what resonated with you earlier on, and where's heavier music come into the picture for you?
I think early on, I think I just really. It's hard to say because it's sort of like, okay, I think I started paying attention to the radio and MTV VH1 around like when I was like 8 or 9. So like 92, 93. And actually, I remember the first song slash music video I really loved was Meatloaf's "I Would Do Anything for Love." I don't know why that resonated so much with me, or it just. I mean, I still love that song, and I definitely still love Meatloaf.
Right.
The hooks. I mean, and the album cut of that song is like 10 minutes long or something too, and there's like a million choruses. So yeah, I love that. That was the first tape I ever got.
Oh, okay.
And then
Was that something that you bought? Was that something that you purchased, or was it a gift that you got?
Went with my parents to the music store, and this was, I mean, CDs were around, but they weren't quite the dominant format yet. I think cassette was still pretty much the biggest thing, and there's just a wall of cassettes, and I asked them to buy that for me. So
Sick.
That was an early one, and and actually, when I think about it, I listened to the radio and I loved all the alternative rock that was happening. Like I loved basically anything that was played on the local rock station here. So I loved Green Day and The Offspring and Weezer and Nine Inch Nails, which is funny because those are all kind of like relatively different sounding bands, but they were all on the radio and huge bands. But actually,
somehow under the same umbrella, yeah.
Right. Honestly, like it's like a weird, like old guy generational thing to say, but I really do feel like the 90s were different in that way, where it's just like, top 40 is just like an industrial band, a punk band, a like pop band, like Hum had like a huge single, so but I think the other big one I can remember is my buddy dubbed me a cassette copy, because my family didn't even have a CD player until 96. My friend dubbed me a tape copy of the Crow soundtrack. And I loved that movie. I loved the comics. And so particularly that song by The Cure called Burn, it was like pretty life-changing. I couldn't hear it enough, like in the trailers and when I watched the movie. And so finally when I got the tape from him. So I don't know, I feel like it's all sort of like melodramatic music in a way. Thinking about Meatloaf and The Cure, where it's just like, okay, like Meatloaf is pretty bombastic. The Cure are less so, but they're both very like, melodramatic and emotional. And I mean, and Meatloaf's not particularly dark, but the video kind of is. I mean, he's like he's playing like a weird like goblin in the video who's like like in love with this woman. And that was probably another selling point about Meatloaf for the video for me, was like, okay, there's this like really attractive woman singing the like bridge part, who's not actually the person who sings it on the record, but they got some babe to do it in the video. But yeah, so I think those are kind of were the big selling points, were just like very like emotionally moving music like that. I think it was, it wasn't just, oh, it's just on the radio, so I like it. Like it had to be something actually kind of, something that was evocative to me, at a deeper level.
Yeah, right. Okay. And I remember, as far as like with Meatloaf, or even like something else, where if you were to get, like a Queen album and you were to listen to Bohemian Rhapsody or something versus the version that was on the radio, and it's like, holy shit, how long were they going with this?
Yeah,
you're like, dang, I didn't realize that this was what I was going in for. Or if you bought like a single and it was on a cassette, you had the whole spool that was taken up from one damn song. It's like, holy shit. Right. All right, well, I got my money's worth at least.
I would definitely say Bohemian Rhapsody was another one for me, because that was right around the time I started listening to music, was when Wayne's World came out. And, that song, like, famous. I mean, it was popular when it first appeared, but then, of course, it had this, like, resurgence in popularity entirely thanks to Wayne's World, and it became, like, a #1 single again. So I was right in time to be seeing the music video for that on VH1 when I was, like, 9 or 10 years old or something. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love you bringing up the music videos, too, because it was something even with, like, our time, like I'm in my earlier 30s, but you know, the time with like Beavis and Butthead and being
Yeah.
introduced to like seeing Primus for the first time and like what the fuck is this? You know, like
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start on trying to explain this band.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
think
certainly.
we're definitely like an important gateway for a lot of people,
Mhm.
even though they're like talking half the time. But I
Right.
I feel like I could have gotten a head start on like more heavy metal stuff younger if I had been allowed to watch Beavis and Butthead. But sadly, that was a forbidden show in my
Yeah.
childhood.
Yeah, yeah, that was. I mean, it was something. I had older siblings, so I got to, you know, kind of peek through. I wasn't supposed to be watching the shit, but it was, you know, kind of like the interest where I was like, oh, I'm not supposed to be watching this,
Right,
so I
right.
can try to, you know, like kind of with like horror movies, you know, also
Oh,
too,
yeah.
where it's like I'm not supposed to be seeing this shit, but you know, yeah, part of the lure to it. What about cover art? As far as you know, scanning your local music shop and something that just popped out to you that maybe introduced you to a band that you'd never even heard of before. What comes to mind with that?
You know, I had to think about this and write down some answers because I feel like I was I was I was well on my way of getting into like more underground-ish music before I started checking out music based on that because I read like I mean by that point I was playing guitar and I was reading you know Circus and Hit Parader magazine and reading
Yeah.
reviews, so I already would be like, oh, okay, like you know, I read a Metal Hammer issue that was talking about Slipknot and Ross Robinson, you know, saying that it's the most extreme band he's ever worked with, and I knew him from doing like the Korn albums, and I was like, okay,
Mm.
I'm gonna check out Slipknot, and so I feel like had some uh, ingress to new music via those things. So the first time that I can remember actually picking up a CD because of the album art, it's it's either Behemoth and it's the album. I had to write it down because I actually
Oh.
don't even remember the album. Pandemonic Incantations, which is not on Spotify for some reason. Um,
Hmm.
it came out in '97. I don't remember really anything about what it sounded like except that it was like sort of like a transitional album for them, going from like more the pure black metal into more death metal sounds.
Oh, okay.
The other one that I bought, and this is also when I was like getting into black metal, so I was like a sophomore or junior in high school. So it's pretty easy to spot at the UCD store what's going to be black metal, you know,
Right.
based on the artwork or the logo. The other one I know, I'm pretty sure I got based on that was Dark Funeral, the album
Oh,
Secret
yeah.
Arts, yeah, which of course, like the logo alone has like a pentagram and I think inverted crosses or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so like, okay, this is what this sounds right, and then it sounded exactly like what I wanted to hear based on the
Yeah.
album art. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I feel like, and I'm trying to think of examples right now too, but there was those times every once in a while where you would see something like that and it was like, I don't even have to look at you know, the track titles or this
yeah,
is going to be, you know, a go-to. And then, you know, you end up popping it in. It's like, what the fuck is this? And
yeah,
God, I'm trying to think now. There's, you know, some examples where it's like, you know, you kind of draw over those lines that, you know, kind of, allure to other, you know, genres, so to speak. But then you listen to it and it's like, whoa, I might have fucked up, but I might also love this. You know, maybe
yeah,
that was just
so
the idea of it.
yeah, yeah.
What as far as where did so within your interest in music, you know, that transition into you playing music, where you know where does that pick up? Was it initially were you playing guitar? Was it an interest in bass, drums? Tell us about that.
So it, I did play. I played trombone from fourth grade through eighth grade.
Mm.
I sort of don't count that because I mean I think it was very important for me, like developing an ear and learning to play with an ensemble with other people. Um, it certainly wasn't like a creative musical instrument for me, at least. You know, I was like, okay, you're reading sheet music. Um, but and actually, I started falling out of that once I got into guitar. So that was like my first, like, I feel creative, expressive musical instrument. And it actually comes directly from wanting to play songs that I love, because I mean, it kind of goes back to when I was talking about having that really like emotional response to songs that I loved. You know, and especially right at the perfect age when, you know, I'm like about to go through puberty, you know, so it's like the hormones are really flowing, and now it's like song, it's like being high or something. Like any emotional content of a song is just like dined. And so it's suddenly it's not enough to just listen to it over and over. Like, okay, I want to like be able to play this on guitar,
Yeah.
and, you know, eventually play it with my friends. And then eventually it's not even enough to do that. The desire now is to, okay, well, can I make this? You know, like I get this feeling when I hear these songs, and I can approximate it. I can sort of live it vicariously, like trying to rudimentarily cover these songs with my friends. And then it's again, it's like a high or something. Like, okay, I need to like generate this. I want to write a riff or a song that I can play that I feel like, you know, emotionally competes with these things that I love, or that I can, you know, maybe even play with a band and share with other people. So yeah, I mean, I think very much like, I don't want to say like punk rock, because I was not really into punk then, but I feel like still that kind of DIY mentality of just like, I want this thing, I want to be able to do this, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to figure it out, you know? So.
Damn. Okay. Yeah. And I love that too. You know, I mean, in mentioning the whole DIY thing, because it seems like, you know, when you're in your earlier, you know, teen years, that it's, you know, kind of this thing where, oh, well, I have the idea that there's not a, you know, a venue around here that'll throw an all ages show, so I'll just find some shitty basement and I'll see if I can find a couple of amps and maybe, you know, like a speaker or something for a microphone, and how that kind of divulges into, you know, further in life, you know, now where it's like there's still, even in a career path or, you know, other things, you develop this do it yourself mentality, and not necessarily punk or hardcore, but how that transitions to, you know, getting a little bit older, and how, you know, you find that it's still very useful, and it's something that, you know, when you're in your youthfulness, you feel like, oh, this is just maybe something kind of silly, but yeah, it definitely transitions well, and I think, you know, sticks with a lot of people, myself, you know, included. But it sounds like you're yourself too, and kind of probably pushing into, you know, picking up, having your own studio, and, you know, doing your own like recording and different things like that, and just kind of jumping for it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say like all the things that I do or I'm into, or nearly all of them at least, are just like, I want to do this thing, I'll figure it out. I mean, even with the first band I was in, like me and the other guys, we saved up our money and we bought like a PA, and, you know, we heard there's this church that does shows, and, you know, we figured out how to like book a show and like supply the PA, and I was like kind of running sound for all the bands, and, you know, we were like fucking 14 or something. So
Sick. That
um,
rolls.
yeah, so that, I think that whatever made me think that, it's not even a matter of thinking, it was just like, just, oh, you just do this. So
Uh,
whatever impulse that is, I think that's been pretty crucial for me throughout
an
my life.
eternal chase.
Yeah, yeah. Just, you know, just like, okay, well, you kind of just have to do it, right? So.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. So, in touching on that first band and that first show, what about a first guitar? What was, you know, the first thing that, you know, maybe it was a little bit of a compromise from that flying V that you were initially wanting, and you know, how did that go? How did you end up getting your first guitar?
Well, I did rent a guitar for a while when I was maybe almost like a year when I was first taking lessons, and I don't even remember what it was. It was like a knockoff Jackson. It did have like a locking bridge, sort of Floyd Rose style bridge. But yeah, my first actual guitar, I actually got very lucky. My dad took me we went to Guitar Center and we were looking around, and it was my birthday, and I think I was 14 or 15. Maybe I was turning 15 because it would have been freshman year of high school. Found there was it was an American Jackson, and it was on sale for like $600 or something, which is a lot of money for, Junior's first guitar. But like, I think my dad was just excited and just like, well, he really likes this music thing, and it's on sale. Cool, we'll get it. And I think my mom, when we came home, my mom was like, "You spent that much on this first guitar?" So I definitely was a little bit spoiled there. But also when I think back, it was like, dude, it's an American Jackson DK1 with like a legit Floyd Rose bridge. Like,
jeez.
that should be like, I don't know, at least like $1,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was deeply discounted for whatever reason. Maybe there was a ding somewhere. I don't remember. But that was my first actual guitar. Yeah, it was definitely kind of a trial by fire learning to restring a Floyd Rose bridge. So
yeah.
But again,
for a time that's not YouTube and different things like that, you're like,
no,
fuck, what did I do?
Yeah, it was still just like, okay, I brought it to the guitar shop and I was like, okay, show me how to do this, because I'm not gonna I don't have the money to like pay to have my strings changed, and
right.
If you want to play with different tunings or whatever, everything's gonna change in the bridge, and you have to figure out how to roll with that. And I wanted to tune lower and lower as I got, into my teens. So definitely had to figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, by the time, that you have to go in and you're adjusting over and over, they're like, can I just give you bass strings at this point? I don't know how to make this thing any heavier for you. This is ridiculous.
I bought, because thick guitar strings like weren't really readily available at my local guitar shop, I bought acoustic strings I bought it with the lowest string. It was like an acoustic string because I couldn't get above like a 48 or something, and I needed like 54, 58 or something, which, acoustic strings are much thicker. So I would just strap down, a super thick acoustic string. But then it was funny because I would play through my little practice amp, and I was like, the lower string is like not as loud as the other strings because it's whatever bronze or something. It's not nickel wound, so it doesn't
yeah.
well, so
oh man. Yeah. And then having to deal with the Floyd Rose too, you're like, man, what did I do? No, I had to
very early how to cut up a block of wood to stick in the cavity between the bridge and the body of the guitar so that it would just stay fixed in place. So
oh shit. Okay. Dang.
But again, still keeping it DIY. I went in my
right.
cut a piece of wood and I sanded it until it was the right size and stuck it in there. So
damn. Okay. What about the first time, maybe leaving out of state or even like a small run for a tour as far as with the band? Was it a successful endeavor, or, did you forget a bunch of shit? Did you break every guitar string, while playing the shows? How did that go for you?
That one, I can't really, it's hard to remember. I feel like that should be like a more profound experience, but I think it would have been just going to Milwaukee, and I think it was in Milwaukee, there was a venue that was called Cloud City, and it was a basement at this house. And I remember being really excited to do it, and I remember it being a pretty good time. I bet I was like 19 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and it would have been around close to the time where I went on my first tour too. I joined this band called Undo Tomorrow, who were kind of like a melodic metalcore band, and then it kind of, then we heard like 100 Demons, and then it started going more towards like that.
Okay.
But yeah, I joined that band, and they already had like a demo out and we're playing shows. So it's just like, okay, cool. I'm like joining this band and I can immediately go to other places and start doing little tours. So, yeah, it would have been like 2003, something like that.
Okay.
Maybe 2002. No, it would have been 2003. That was probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
So nothing of a hauntingly negative experience at all, luckily, just something that kind of went along and
yeah,
some foundation.
The first tour that I did was with that band, and it definitely was not a great tour show-wise, but I think we didn't have any expectation because, like, I mean, I'd never even been on, like, a road trip by myself before. Like, I went on, like, when I was playing trombone in band, we traveled once a year. There was, like, a trip, but, like, we're with chaperones and all that stuff. So this is the first time I think that I ever had, like, a dudes hitting the road kind of experience. So it was a blast though. It was like shows, like I said, weren't amazing. There was fun, but but we didn't have GPS. We printed off map. We got lost, and I had to use an actual map to like get us back to where we needed to go. So yeah, it was all the kind of. I'm glad I at least got to have that experience of tour before it became. I don't know. I'm sure it would have been like easier to book if we could just email people or like put it out on social media. Hey, looking for dates, yada yada. But I'm sort of glad that I could have like a weird, crappy DIY experience doing it. So
totally. I feel like that is something too, along with just the experience of it being popular to go to a music shop, rather than, it's something where like streaming, like I love streaming, don't get me wrong. I have, tons of stuff that I discover, off of that, but, just the opportunity of that, there's nothing else other than the music shop down the road to go there and see what's in the new releases or, see what cool import that just came, it was fun and, kind of that sense of danger of having to travel somewhere, maybe even out of state, and you might have a couple of maps that you maybe can read.
Totally.
You're just hoping, that you're making it there and you're not hitting all sorts of traffic and, the highway shut down. You have to take detours and all this shit.
Right.
That's totally fun. I can see the appreciation with that. What about as far as a pre-show ritual, as far as something maybe even earlier on versus more recently, and how maybe that has changed as far as getting ready and warmed up before you go out to play a show?
I never really had much of a ritual. I would always feel nervous before any show. I mean, even the last show I played, well, I felt nervous for a variety of reasons because we hadn't played in 2 years and there's a fucking pandemic. But still get like jitters, like not like, ooh, like I'm gonna screw up or whatever. No, everyone's gonna hate it. It's not like that. It's more just like an anxiousness to like just, okay, let's just play. So for a minute I was doing stretches. That would be more recently, in the last 10 years or so, getting older and stuff. It's like, cool. Play one show and it's like being hungover or something. Like I feel like I got yeah. Like you have like, the bangover is real. So it's definitely a thing that's important. And I've done a scatter shot in the past and, probably need to do more. But actually, my friend Dan told me that Paul Bearer, the singer of Sheer Terror, he would always get nervous before shows, and his rule was 2 beers. It's like you have 2 beers, and then you're good before a show. And in extreme moments, I have done that. I don't really drink much at all, but I have been like, okay, I'm gonna have 2 beers. I won't be drunk, but just loosened up enough that it's like, okay, cool, let's go.
Yeah, okay. Maybe a little bit mid-set, you're starting to loosen up.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to advocate people being like, oh, I gotta be fucked up to go to make my art, you know, like,
Yeah,
but
right.
for me, in a couple moments that worked out. But
Mm.
beyond that, I mean, no, I never really did any kind of like powwow or, you know, push-ups or anything. It was just sort of like pace around, maybe drink something, uh, and then, you know, that's about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and it's something. I mean, honestly, you mentioned the whole like not advocating thing. Like, I'm not straight edge by any means, but as far as before going out and playing, you know, it's one of those things where like the other members of my band, they talk about, you know, having like a shot or a beer or something. And it's like it's just never worked with me in playing, and I don't know if it's something with drums and having all of my limbs and just trying to like keep in mind that like I have to, you know, keep a tempo behind this, and I have to kind of, you know, put forth all of my energy that I have. But alcohol has never been something that's helped me. And there's been lots of drummers that I've talked to too, where they swear they're like a beer or, you know, like 2 shots and something, yada, 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 whatever. It's like, oh, I mean, go off. That's sick that you can fucking play this shit because
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it. It's insane.
Yeah, everybody's different for sure. I definitely, drummers have my sympathy forever, um, for many reasons, not the least of which being like how expensive drums are and how many there are and how much of a pain it is to carry around. But, you know, also just the fact that like, I feel like drummers and singers have it the worst at shows because you just like can't ever phone it in. Like a guitar player, if you're like, oh man, this like show kind of sucks, or I'm in like a bad mood, you know, it was a shitty day, whatever. You can play and you can like, you know, maybe you're not wiling out, but you can get the job done and it's fine. But if you are a drummer, it's like, no man, this is like so fucking physically demanding. Like you need to hit as hard as you can and you need to play as fast as you can, like if that's your music, you know, no matter what, you know, like it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna suck if you know, aren't giving it your all, you know.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, I whatever ritual a drummer needs to do it, man, because I don't envy your job.
So as far as with lastly touching on, you know, earlier sessions recording in a studio, you know, and maybe even something that comes to mind is something maybe in those, you know, those processes that may have inspired or assisted, you know, your approach still today, and you know, now having a studio and engineering and working. What comes to mind with that?
Well, I will say my first studio experiences were not very good, and that's actually the reason that I got into recording. Um,
Perfect.
which is, you know, again, the kind of DIY thing where it's like, okay, well, we heard that there's at the local, this college in Elmhurst College in Elmhurst, Illinois.
Mm.
Okay, they have a studio there, and you can like go in for a day and pay a couple $100 and make a record. So we did that. We did that twice. My first band, um, and we were really really pumped about it, and just like listened to it, you know, on repeat all the way home from being there. But you know, it's also frustrating because it's like, why doesn't this sound like, you know, Around the Fur? You know, why doesn't this sound? So that was kind of the thing to be like, okay, well, I I want to figure out how to do this, and so you know, I took a summer institute class, between junior and senior year, at this college called Columbia College in Chicago, which is like an arts college, private arts college that has a recording program. And we were in a studio, um, you know, working with a band and recording them and kind of seeing it from the ground up. And so yeah, that was pretty huge because you're just like, oh, there's like EQ you can use to like make a kick drum sound, you know, cool and clicky like these metal recordings. Or you know, you can put reverb on a snare to make it sound like it's in like a big space, you know. So that was pretty huge being able to do that. um so yeah, man, I think a lot of it just kind of comes from being disappointed in an engineer who had no familiarity with what we were doing. and couldn't really execute what we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think that's pretty important for thinking about production now, is just trying to have an understanding of what a band is looking for, where they're coming from musically, and just trying to meet them at their level, and their expectations, aesthetically and creatively, so yeah, not wanting to be the guy who let down my high school's new
Yeah. Okay. All right. I mean, and I appreciate that too. You have every once of those kind of oddball combinations where you see a band that's like, that ends up with a producer, maybe on a bigger scale, but ends up with a producer that's maybe like a pop producer or something. It's like, what are they doing there? Like, what are they gonna make? And it ends up really cool. So there's those situations too, but I can definitely say I feel like I've had more negative experiences out of somebody who's like, wait, so what's hardcore? It's like, oh boy, what did we do?
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit. Okay, well, I just try your best to, maybe fashion after this record or this record. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, all right, yeah. So,
Totally.
I can appreciate that. All right. So as far as digging into weekend nachos being a big shift in your musical endeavors, bring us back to earlier conversations with John and maybe riffs or songs that you remember being early foundation for what the band came to be. It's a little while back, so I appreciate even if it's just a little something.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I moved in with John when we were both going to NIU, and this was 2004, and we had sort of been talking about starting a band, and around that time, I really loved. John got me into Mind Eraser, and I really loved their first LP. I think it was Cave, I think, and yeah, we've been talking about starting a band. Actually, he got me into Mind Eraser, and I got him into Carcass. So
Oh yeah,
I
okay.
feel like between those things, that was like pretty big. And then we also, we mutually talked about how much we loved a band from our area called Kung Fu Rick, who were like the cool older guys of the scene who'd like played Gilman and like done all this touring. And I mean, they're only like a few years older than us, but like, they were like,
It was the image,
when I started,
yeah.
when I started going to shows, I was just like, whoa, these guys are cool.
Legit, yeah.
without words, But they were awesome too, because they were like, I guess they're a weird band, because it's like kind of grind, kind of death metal-y, but then it's like weird, and there are sludgy parts, like kind of human remains at times, but then there's like, doomy riffs, and then there's stuff that's more punk sounding. So we talked about starting a band like that. I was like, okay, well, we're gonna have like fast parts and then like really slow parts. And so, yeah, between all that, I was like, okay, like let's just, try it. And then we got asked, if we wanted to play a show, and we didn't have a band yet. So we're like, okay, well, this is our chance to start a band. And literally just like shat out the easiest, simplest riffs I could think of that I thought were cool. And I mean, I know one of the first ones I wrote was, it's the first song off of the 7-inch, called End of Your Faith, which, just like a really simple fast part, really simple slow part. And then John wrote an intro. John wrote an intro for it, because I think he was wanting to have something a little bit more doomy sounding. But yeah, it was literally just like, okay, I'm gonna write 2 riffs, a fast riff and a slow riff, or it's gonna be one riff and it'll just be fast, and just trying to write very simple but raging stuff. So.
Yeah. Okay. It slipped my mind too. Was that 7-inch just you and John, or did you guys have like a band assembled with?
No, we had a whole band.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
John, the genesis of it was John and I, but we we had a friend who lived near where our school was, named Adam, who had a one-man band called Inverted, who were fucking awesome. But we knew he played drums, so we hit him up. And then our friend Ron was also, I believe, going to NIU. And so we hit him up. Ron plays in Bong Ripper now. Adam plays in Sick Tired. So Sick Tired and Sea of Shit. We hit them up and asked if they wanted to play in the band, and Ron wrote some riffs too. I want to say the song American Hardcore off of the 7-inch. I think it's on the demo too. I think Ron wrote that one. But yeah, it was, again, just like, let's just write like a lot of like simple, fast songs and, play this show and see what happens. I mean, it was supposed to be, we were sort of added to the show as a joke because the promoter hated working with this venue, or I should say the people who ran the venue at that time. It's since changed hands and it's legit now, but and he was like just not pumped on the show and was like super frustrated, and he literally wanted us to start an obnoxious band so that secondhand like catharsis or revenge over like how pissed he was about how things were handled. So we thought we'd only play that one show, maybe another 2 or whatever, put out a crappy demo, and that's that. So it went a little bit further. The joke went too far, but
yeah, boy, oh boy, that get fucking out of control.
Yeah.
Oh my god! All right, so hypothetically, let's just say, not to pry into the whole if you guys are playing more shows or if it's going to be a comeback thing or whatnot, but as far as a personal interest from you, if you guys were booking a show and you got to select 3 songs that were just personal favorites of yours, maybe even something that didn't get played a lot, maybe never got played live, what 3 songs would you have in this set list that you would toss in?
It's tough to say because there are like, making set lists got progressively harder as the band went on because, we write more songs and we're excited about them, we want to play them. But then as the back catalog grows and sort of like fan favorites start to pop out, it's like, okay, well, we have to play this no matter what. We have to play this song. We have to play this song. So I guess this is sort of like, assuming that those things like either don't matter or maybe we're just playing like a stupidly long set like we did at our final shows. But yeah. I would want to play the song No Saints, which was from the Black Earth. No, was Black Earth 7-inch? Yeah, it's from the Black Earth 7-inch. We never played it live. It's got like a super cool heavy riff. It rips off a Korn riff at one point.
Oh, shit.
So I definitely want to play that. There's another song, a song that I wrote for Worthless that we never played live called The Meeting, which doesn't really sound like other songs. It's like a kind of stonery, doomy riff. Seen some of these comments here. This is good.
Yeah.
Hey, James, hey. Hi, David. I'm Grandpa. It's a Simpsons quote, everybody.
I like that.
Let's see. So there would be the Meeting, No Saints, and I was like writing down. You sent me some questions ahead of time, and I was like, I have to like have these written down because I'm not going to be able to like come up with them off the bat. So I actually have I have written on this People's Gas notice.
Okay. There you go.
Notice where they're threatening to shut off my gas, by the way, because they're threatening me because I didn't set up. They're saying I didn't set up a safety inspection, but I did, and it happened over a month ago, and I'm still getting these notices. So I actually just got off the phone with them before getting on the Instagram Live with you. So this is all fresh in my brain. People's gas.
Oh shit!
It's like 30 degrees outside.
Oh
The
no.
the other song though, the other one is one we have played. It's called "That Life of Yours," and it's off of the "Watch You Suffer" 7-inch. We
Mm.
did play that a couple times. It's just got like a stupidly heavy beatdown riff, and I'd forgotten about that song, and I heard it again recently, and I was like, oh damn, this song is cool. We should.
Hell yeah.
Would have been cool to have played this more. So
For sure. Okay.
those are my.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I love that. And continuing on, not a whole lot longer, because we're going to be digging into the score and whatnot here. But one last thing I had to ask, April of 2015, you guys release Weezer Nachos. And yeah, I mean, myself being a huge Weezer fan, I have a Weezer tattoo. They're one of my favorite bands of all time, featuring 2 cover songs. Tell us, how does this idea come up? And what was the initial conversation to do this covers EP?
So it actually took a long time for that to come to be. So my friend Jeff does the label Run for Cover Records, and he had asked me years before that, probably back in like 2012 or something. Oh, I want to try doing like a 7-inch subscription thing, where you like sign up and you get a new 7-inch or 7 inches every month or something. And he's like, and I would be cool to do a Weekend Nachos 7-inch. I was like, oh, that's cool. Let me talk to the band. The band thought it was a cool idea, but we're like, well, we don't know if we want to like put a release that's like that exclusive where you have to like sign up for this whole thing just to get it. We would want to make it so that like anybody who wants to buy it can get it. So, and I got that, not being totally comfortable with that context of release.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was some back and forth, and I don't think he even ended up doing the subscription idea. But the compromise was, okay, we'll do this thinking that it was going to be a subscription format. We'll do this if they're covers and not originals, because then we won't feel like we're shortchanging people who would want to hear the songs, if they're just covers.
Okay.
So then we're like, well, what would be cool to do? And I don't know. I actually don't know why Weezer came up. I mean, all of us love Weezer. Maybe we were just listening to them a lot at the time, like in the van. But they were recorded at the same time we recorded our side of the split with Lack of Interest. So it's the same recording session.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And at the end of it, I think we were like, yeah, we like these songs. Oh, it was also, I think, understood from the start that I was going to be singing on them.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least I was the most capable person in the band of doing that. So I wanted to be sure that they were songs that like were within my range. So that was a big part of it. And yeah, so I think those songs were like, okay, we love these songs. Tired of Sex is certainly like naturally heavy. Like it's, the way it ends, it's like not like a breakdown, but it's like a big riff.
Uh-huh.
And then In the Garage, we just love that song. So I think that was literally, I played the songs on my iPod, and we recorded the drums to like my iPod playing. So
holy shit! Wow.
They're matched up with the tempo exactly of the record because they were just playing along with the actual their studio recordings. So, but then it took me forever to finish them. We had a bunch of stuff going on, other releases. And so eventually, finally, when we were done, Jeff was like, oh, let's do this as like a record store day release. So that kind of lit the fire under my ass to finish it. So, yeah.
Man.
Yeah, that was
sick.
it. Yeah.
That's so awesome. Shit. I remember seeing those tracks, and I feel like it was even before, like, I didn't even know that it was a release or it was a thing. I just saw that it was the band that I saw the track names. I'm like, what the fuck is it? Like, there's no way. And then I play it. That was the one thing I wanted to touch on too, is just how it was like so in tune and polished with the originals too, where I was like, oh, this is fucking, I didn't know if that was like initial in an idea where you wanted it to cover, exactly, as is and kind of get the closest, version that you could, or if it was just something that just happened on a happenstance.
We definitely wanted to make them sound like as close to the originals as possible. The only things that I changed were, so they're in the same key of the songs, like they're in the same register, but we tune low, and I played a 7-string. So wherever I could, I would play
Oh my
the same
God.
chord but an octave lower, or I would like bar the lowest string so it would sound heavier. So yeah,
Oh
basically
shit.
just like try to be as true to the originals as possible, but also make them heavier in any way that we could. Which yeah, it's just sort of like happens when you can play, you know, an octave lower than what the original is. So
Oh shit, that is so. I'm just picturing like Weezer playing a 7-string right now, and
yeah.
that's so fucking funny. Yeah. Oh man, if you had the opportunity to add one more song to that, you know, just as a personal favorite Weezer song, you know, to this EP and make it a 3-track, what would be another song that you would slap on this bad boy?
Honestly, maybe El Scorcho.
Oh
I love
yes.
that riff, that ball, and also like the tempo of that. I feel that could sound really heavy too. It's like a little bit slower. Um,
Almost kind of like
yeah,
a D-beat type thing going on there, you know,
yeah, oh
with
yeah,
the
and it's
drums
got
real
right,
slowed
and it's got
down.
like a punk breakdown in it too. So that
Hmm.
part could just it's something could get like raging, you know.
Yeah.
We could even do like a sort of split thing where it's like I could sing, you know, the song, but then maybe when it gets to that part, like John comes in, so it actually like turns into kind of a, you know, an actual D beat part. Like it could just sound like us playing.
Sheesh.
Yeah, that solidifies my choice. That would be the one.
I
Yeah.
love that. Wow. All right. Well, I mean, if something of that is coming to fruition, let me know, and I can edit that part out, and we won't. This never
I don't think
happened.
that ever happened. So.
Next up, I want to touch on Like Rats. So you guys released the latest Death Monolith in 2020 with yourself both playing bass as well as, you know, recording, mixing the album there. First, tell us as far as your bass breakdown for the sessions there. What did you have that you were playing on that bad boy?
My bass setup is actually pretty close to what I do live. Well, it changes a little bit, but it was very simple. It is. I have a made in Japan. I forget what year, but a '90s P bass, Fender P bass, and with stock everything, stock pickup. And then it was into a Sun concert bass head. It was the red knob era. I have two of them, and
Mm.
this is the red knob one. And then that into an Emperor 215. That's it. No pedals, nothing. Um,
Sheesh, really?
yeah.
Damn.
I have to. That head does not put out a lot of low end. So the way I run it is treble 0, mid 0, bass 10, and I'm in the normal input with the brightness switch on. And then I think I just dime the input too, and then it just distorts pretty well. So yeah.
Sheesh. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not overly like a guitar. Like I get, you know, over the years, you know, when somebody's saying something in the band and they're saying something and you just look like a complete fucking moron with a blank face. It's like, I don't know what you're saying. Let's go over this a little bit. but having everything down but the bass, like I feel like that brings me back to the days of having a practice like combo amp, and you're just trying to do anything you can to make this thing sound cool.
Yeah,
And...
yeah. Yeah,
Damn. Okay.
I think just in general live, I hate having any pedals. So I'm just trying to always get the most out of the least, at least in a live scenario.
Mm.
I mean, recorded, like I'll stack pedals and do whatever to get it done. But especially if it's my band, you know, it's sort of like, this is what I use live and it sounds awesome. Let me plug it in here and like see if it works and put a couple mics on it. And I was like, okay, this sounds good.
Yeah.
Cool. You know, that's, I think in terms of being like in the, you know, producer seat for my own band, you know, I think I'm like not especially picky. You know, it feels like a thing where it's just like, okay, like I could take more time, you know, the clock's not running budget wise, and we have a finite amount of time because there's other sessions scheduled around us. But, you know, certainly we have time to indulge. But if I think it sounds cool, you know, cool, let's go with it. You know, I don't really feel like plugging in a million pedals just to like get marginally better or something different if I like what I hear already. So that
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
case here, and I think it worked out.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, oh, totally. I mean, it sounds absolutely sick, and I think it just surprised me more or less that there wasn't any sort of, like a manipulator as far as with like a pedal or anything like that. Just with sound in general. But like I say, I'm also pretty much a dummy when it comes to a lot of those things. So drums wise, I could be like, oh yeah, yeah, I hear that there. But yeah, I mean, no, it sounds great. That's sick. Was there anything as far as riffs wise that you brought to the album there? I
Honestly,
know not playing guitar, so it's a little bit different, but
yeah. For this record, I don't know if I brought like any riffs. I think this one, uh, I with Like Rats, the guitar player Todd is the primary songwriter, um, and not by any sort of mandate. He, you know, just has kind of taken on that role and has a really specific style of playing that I think is actually kind of hard to recreate. Drew brought in some riffs. I know the drummer Drew, who played bass in Weekend Nachos,
mhm.
he contributed a couple riffs, but like 99% of it is Todd, and but then the rest of us are contributing in the arrangement process. So it's like, okay, like
Oh, okay.
so like, okay, how many times do we do this riff? Like, okay, we're stuck here. What should happen afterwards? You know, oh, let's try a different drum beat here. It's more along those lines in terms of how that band operates. Um, so yeah, I don't think I don't think there's uh, really anything that I wrote for that record. There's usually at least
Oh, okay.
a riff that I bring around for our records, but that one, no, that one's just all Todd and a little bit of Drew. So
Okay. Okay. And I mean, you mentioned too, Todd, and his sound, like that is one thing, where there's certain times listening to the record where I, I don't know. I don't know. I guess you have times where, you listen to just hardcore metal in general and you kind of feel like, oh, okay, this part's going to mold into this type of part. And there would be certain things, maybe if it was even, guitar and drums, where I'd be listening and kind of nod my head thinking that it's going to go. And then it would be like, whoa, what did it do there? Like
yeah,
God, I'm trying to think if it was Foul Wind or near the beginning. And there's like a tom fill that goes and it almost feels like it like stops abruptly, like just to my ear, and then
yeah,
it goes into something else. I'm like, what the fuck are they doing?
yeah,
I
yeah,
have to like go back and rewind it. Oh man, the dude, yeah, that's totally that new album. I've been loving it and completely shreds. I love the stuff that you guys have been doing with that.
yeah.
Do you have anything as far as playing like with shows wise or anything, or has it been pretty much scaled back with everything going
Uh,
on?
we've played one show in the last 2 years. We put
Mm-hmm.
out that record, and we had an awesome record release show booked with Spectral Voice and Crypts and another band I can't remember. And then that was canceled. And
Mm-hmm.
then everything went to hell. And we just played like a month and a half ago, I think, with Gay Creeper, and
Oh yeah,
that
yeah.
was great. It was a great show. It was sort of scary playing, and I hadn't been around many people in a while, but it was fun. But we have no other stuff really on the horizon. I'm usually the reason that we can't do more because my schedule is so locked in with studio work, where it's like, oh, are you guys free to play one show on this weekend 4 months from now? And it's like, nope, sorry. Right. So yeah,
uh,
nothing on the books yet. There was sort of a half attempt to start writing at one of the last practices before we started practicing for the show. We'll see if that picks up again. But yeah, at this point, it's just sort of like, well, if a cool offer comes along to play a show and we can do it, great. But you know, otherwise we're a little bit in hibernation, but we'll get back at it soon enough.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And I appreciate that too. Obviously, a goal at one point, is touring and kind of being on the road at all times. And if you do that for a little bit, it kind of changes things too. But I've always appreciated, bands like Incendiary, where those fellas like just absolutely murder it, but they also have like a full-time job type situation where it's not all the time that you're going to be able to catch them, or like one random show I got to catch them in Chicago with Harm's Way playing. It was just like that in and of itself was an experience. It's like, I don't know when the fuck I'm going to be able to see these guys again. It's like a special treat there, where you open up, the box of mozzarella sticks and there's an extra one in there, it's like, there you go. Can't ask for any more. I don't know where the fuck that came from. I apologize.
No.
So with a couple of the tracks on there, on the album, I wanted to touch on really quick here. This is trying to cut me off really fast. Do you mind if I end this and then restart it? It tries to do that in an hour, and it's trying to say that the session's going to end. Is that cool if I end this and save it really quick and we'll get back on?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, all right, just 1 minute, man. All right,
Back.
Everything good?
Yeah, yep. I
Okay.
I actually just took that moment to take a leak.
Okay. All right, perfect. I didn't. I was gonna say I didn't know if you just got off the phone yelling at the gas company or what exactly had happened there, but
that was all.
That'll ensue later.
Like 1 minute before I got on, so.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were very nice. I was very frustrated because we just got back from my girlfriend and I just got back from California yesterday, and had some mail, and there were 3 envelopes from the gas company with like the dire like pink paper like open now. I was like, what the fuck? Like we did this. Why? But I try to keep my cool because I whenever there's things with the cable or company or whoever, I try not to be a dick on the phone because it's just
not
they're
their fault.
Yeah, they're at a call center. They don't know anything about whatever. There's no one you can actually like choke out when shit goes wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just gotta keep your cool, and and she was nice. So
that's all the better. Sometimes it makes matters a little worse when you're already pissed and then they're rude and just kind of shitty and short. It's like, okay.
Yeah,
I'm trying here. You're testing me.
Yeah,
and, you're not gonna win.
if they start the ball rolling like that, then yeah, you're in the clear to send back some negative vibes. But I usually find that, I try to take it as like a, man, this person just gets like fucking reamed out all day, despite having nothing to do with these problems. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna actually just be like very polite and nice, and like maybe try to like feel good about the fact that I can maybe be like a pleasant interaction in their otherwise like terrible day at this job.
Sure.
So and that sort of also serves to like soothe my rage when I'm dealing with it all. So
yeah. Little juxtaposition there. I like
but
that.
sometimes
like that.
They're awful too, and you're just like,
not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Okay. So digging back into we left off here with Like Rats and touching on a couple of the tracks. Maybe just even as far as what you remember as far as the writing or studio / production wise of the tracks. First off, I wanted to ask about Foul Wind. That bad motherfucker there. What comes to mind with that?
I definitely remember that. I was really excited when we wrote that one because that just felt like a single where it's just like, all right, here, we try to have like a heavy kind of mid-tempo song on every record,
Mm-hmm.
and that one felt like that one, it's like, okay, it's a real chuggy stomper. So yeah, I was just excited about it, and I also felt like it didn't feel out of place with the other songs too. So I was pumped that we had a song that stood out tempo and vibe wise, but still fit with the rest of the tracks. Actually, the blast, the riff in the blast section of that song, that was a Drew contribution on that one.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, production wise, you know, not much to it really for that one. Just sort of like, I know we were, there's a lot of vocal stuff I was really excited about. And this is the first record where our singer Dan was able to do some demoing at home, which is super exciting because, you know, normally it's like, okay, we're not going to hear the vocals until we're in the studio because the PA, you can barely hear it in the practice space. So it was really exciting to like hear his ideas, you know, with him left to his own devices, what he comes up with. So yeah, there's a lot of little things that I wanted to preserve from. Actually, I think it's going into like the second chorus. He does this like vocal line that ends with like a yeah, and there's like a little pause. It's like yeah, and I think when we initially recorded vocals, he didn't do that again, and I was like, you have to do that like you did. That's
Yeah.
that like gets me pumped to like go into the chorus. So
yeah. I like that you mentioned that too, because sometimes it's just the small little things that when it's not reproduced or it's not replicated, you know, you go back and you're like, well, what did you do there?
yeah,
I don't know. I just did some silly shit. Well, that worked. Do that again. Don't take that out. Shit.
So sometimes it's annoying when especially if it's you know, a band I'm recording, they get really like a demo-itis where it's like some random thing that happened during the demoing process they're like really stuck on trying to recreate for the album, and either they can't do it or it's somehow like at odds with everything we've recorded thus far, you know, like that wasn't in mind when we did the initial tracks. So now it's sort of like, well, how do we recreate that? Or, oh, I played some drum fill I've never played before in my life and like can't recreate. And it's like, well, maybe, you know, maybe the song's not going to suck if it doesn't have this thing that you don't know how to do ever again. But in this case, you know, I definitely was like, no, it has to be like the demo. So that's something I try to take with me when bands are like, no, he did this thing on the demo, we have to recreate it. And it's like, okay, yes, I've been there. Let's try to do it. So
yeah, totally. A little compromise, but yeah, I'm sure. And that's something too, you know, if it's like you're in the studio and you're not quite hitting it and you're not doing it, it's like, well, what's to say what's going to happen when you go to play it live? You know, you might be kind of bummed out because then people might love this particular moment, and it's like,
yeah.
I don't sound anything like that. What did they do? They get a new drummer?
Dude, I'll give you a perfect example of that. The first hardcore show that I ever saw in Chicago was it was Poison the Well at the Fireside in probably 2001, 2002, maybe. And there's all these little drum things on Opposite of December where he'll do these weird little like ding 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 like cymbal accents like during like a clean guitar break, and the drummer did none of them live. I loved that record when I was in high school. I like knew it front to back. I knew all the little like drum fills and guitar riffs, and there are all these little cymbal accent drum things, and he did none of it live. And I was like, is it the same drummer? Like, why is he not doing any of this? I was very bummed about that. So,
oh, that is.
I don't want anybody to feel that if they see one of my bands play.
yes. A particular story that comes to mind with that is on Broken Wings. I don't know if you'd ever, you know, like were ever big into them or saw them, but I saw them live once, and they played I Can Do My Crosswords in Ink. Obviously, that was like one of their bigger songs, but an earlier recording of that song that my friends and I had like circulated around town and different friends, there's a moment where like there's a pause and everything but the guitar, and you hear like a yelling. Like, I don't know if it's Jonathan, but you hear a yelling in the background. And like me and my buddies are yelling at the band doing this, and we're kind of looking around. They're like, well, fuck, they're not even doing this. What's going on? What happened?
Bum me out.
And Yeah, come to find out, we were alone on that. They're like, yeah, we do not do
Dude,
that.
the band should have been psyched that you were referencing like a deep cut like early version of the song.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, touche. And I guess to be fair to Jonathan, I think was on a tether at the time.
Mm.
So they had Wheeler singing, who was the singer, the vocalist for Black My Heart.
Okay.
He was singing for him too. So maybe it was just something kind of off. But I remember specifically us being like stoked, just kind of being in the band and kind of the energy of the show, and then it was like not received at all. And we're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is fucked. Let's stop. Everything good?
Hang on one second. There's like fucking crashing sounds coming out through my wall.
All right. If needed, we can end here and.
I think it's cool. I think it's just guys doing some work and
Oh, okay.
like, crashed against the building or something.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Makes
Nick,
sense. It's the gas company.
okay, if it's actually them, okay, these. No.
Yeah. Oh god. All right. So last up with Like Rats, I wanted to touch on Crimson Cosmos. What can you tell us about that bad boy?
That one I remember when we wrote it. There's like a bridge part at the end. Actually, when you were talking about like a sudden like vibe shift in one of our songs, that's one that I thought of because I remember when we wrote it, and there's a bridge where it really abruptly changes tempo and feel. It goes into that part, and I remember being like, "This is like I don't know, it's just like kind of like out of nowhere." But then it really grew on me, and I really loved the part, and then it was sort of like justify with like, okay, this is a move that Sepultura would do on like Beneath the Remains.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Oh,
the songs
shit.
on that record have like longer compositions with more abrupt shifts in tempo and key. So that was, I think, sort of the inspiration for that. And so that was like, okay, yeah, I can see that now. And then as we like kept doing it and working on it, we're like, yeah, this is awesome. That's also a song that like I liked playing and I thought was fine. But then once we recorded it and it started to really come together in the studio, I was like, oh yeah, I love this. Like this, this could be a single from the record. So, and then I was like, okay, we have to put like an evil bell sound on the hits at the beginning. So there's like evil church bell sounds that happen. So
Sick. I love that. I love it. Yeah, I mean, and that's, those are some of the fun, like fun little things here too, because I do feel like I remember hearing that. But now that you mentioned that, I go back and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what that is. You can hear like an undertone of something that's not overly prominent and in your face, but yeah, very, very sick. I love that.
Yeah. Wasn't trying to go full Jimmy Ford or anything, but just like there's a few moments where there's little elements like that I was like, yes, this is a good idea.
Totally. I love that. All right. So transitioning a little bit, I wanted to talk a little bit before we get into the score, horror interests in film. As far as at an early age, what, maybe made an impact on you as far as maybe a movie or TV show, and how did horror, get introduced to yourself?
I definitely. So we were talking earlier about like how, for me at least, like the forbidden fruit like media, like Beavis and Butthead I wasn't allowed to watch, so it was like it just makes you want to watch it more. And it was never explicitly stated that I wasn't allowed to watch horror movies or anything, but I think I did just feel a natural sort of like ooh, this is this isn't allowed, or this is pushing the I don't want to like cross this boundary or whatever. Or so when my parents were gone, they both left, and it was like, okay, I'm going to watch Aliens, finally.
Oh,
they had it on VHS. I watched Aliens before I saw Alien.
Oh, okay.
And that was like the, you know, like, oh shit, like they're gone, like I can watch this. That was definitely a big one, and I remember feeling like really. I mean, I was like terrified that there were going to be like aliens in the. Just knowing like the sound of the proximity detector beeping more rapidly, and
Oh yeah.
like, they're all huddled in the room, and it's getting they're like that's impossible. They should be in the room with us, and then they look up, and it's like oh fuck. That scared me like beyond anything. So that was probably
Man,
one of the first big ones. Was that movie?
I love that. I love that. All right, so this transitions perfectly, and I'm hoping that this was you. There's a shot on your Instagram page here of an alien costume. Was this you?
Actually, no. That
Oh
was
man.
that was my old roommate,
Okay.
John Murphy, who had great Halloween costumes. Real crafty guy. Um, Actually, my Halloween costumes, I I try not to be a direct thing. Oh, he just joined too, John. John, we
Yeah.
talked about your alien costume from many years ago.
So sick. God,
It's
that thing
funny too,
ruled.
because that costume, like, eventually, I think John had even like he moved out maybe a year or two after that, and his costume was still like it was like left behind, like it was in this sort of uh, in front of our apartment on like our landing in the stairwell where we kept like a bunch of trash. And eventually I like brought it outside and I just like left it on top of like a garbage can just for somebody to see. Uh, so yeah. No,
Damn.
my costumes are usually I tried to do things that were at the risk of sounding pretentious, conceptual. But
Okay.
I
All
wanted it
right.
to be cool. So like one year uh, I went as porn or pornography, and I literally just bought a bunch of like Hustler magazines and cut up pictures, and like taped it to like every inch of my body except for my head. And I went to a Halloween show, so I was just literally like a walking, uh, collage of pornographic images. Uh, So that was cool. Another year, I had this. I got this bodysuit. It was sort of like a flesh colored, like head to toe bodysuit thing. People were in like the Green Man bodysuit thing several years
Okay.
ago,
Yeah.
like Always Sunny or something like that. But
Yeah.
this was flesh colored, and I stuffed it sort of randomly with like clothes and like blankets and stuff, like in my arms and my legs and my chest and stomach area, and then in the head too. And I just cut like one weird eye hole. And so it just looked like this really weird, like my body just had all these insane tumorous bulges everywhere. And I walked into my friend's house for a Halloween party, and nobody, you couldn't tell who I was. And I just didn't say anything and just like, and it seemed to actually disturb people too, which I was really happy about. And then when eventually people found out it was me, and then they asked me what my contest or what my costume was, I said, this is my body. So, oh,
Oh,
I will say, there's
shit.
one year that I did go as a movie thing. I went as Carrie from the movie Carrie.
Oh shit.
So I
Okay. All
bought a
right.
from a Goodwill, and I made a bunch of fake blood, and I just wore the dress and was like covered in fake blood. And
Oh my god.
that night that I wore that, Like Rats played a cover set, and we did a Sepultura cover set. So
Oh my god.
yeah,
That is sick. Holy shit. I mean, so
yeah,
many angles for that being an awesome story. Jeez.
yeah.
And you were covered in blood playing?
Yeah, it was. Well, I made this sticky blood that
Oh,
was like
that changes
awful.
things.
Yeah, but then
Yuck.
a friend of mine had this like spray on stuff that was like way cleaner. It actually looked better because it would like drip and like kind of get darker and looked more congealed. But that stuff, once it dried, it was like fine. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
so I just like was all red and drippy, and then yeah, I played guitar for that show. So
Oh shit. Well, yeah, I was gonna say, thank God it wasn't like a Caro syrup or some shit where it's just like oozing out of your pores the whole time as you're
right,
trying to play.
right,
Like,
yeah,
oof. Good Lord.
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
so as far as in movies, things that you've seen over the years, and this doesn't necessarily have to be horror, just in film in general. What are three scenes that are forever ingrained in your brain? Just something that it's maybe gross or shocking or plain unforgettable. What comes to mind as far as three scenes in films?
So I will say, one of them would be from Aliens, and it wouldn't be it's the scene where they find all the colonists and they see them all
Oh
like
yeah.
stuck to the walls and everything, and that was like so horrifying to me. This sort of just like living hell of being like cocooned, and again, this is I hadn't seen Alien. I don't and I wasn't familiar enough with Aliens to like really know like all of the, again, I'd heard a little bit about like the chest burster stuff or whatever, but
Mm.
then to finally see it, and it's just like some guy, and he says like, help me, and then like the thing bursts out of him, and that was like so viscerally horrifying. um and I think that it contributed to my like appreciation of body horror kind of stuff.
Okay. Okay.
So there's that. I
I
actually wrote
love it.
this. Also related to body horror, the Blob, the '90s, I think it was '80s or '90s remake,
Yeah. Okay.
uh, where it's like there's kind of like a good spoiler alert. There's kind of a good turn at the very beginning where you think that the boyfriend guy is going to be the protagonist, the hero, but then he just gets killed by the Blob, and like his girlfriend like finds him being like consumed, and he's like still alive while it's like melting him, and she grabs his arm and his arm rips off, and it's just like so brutal and disgusting.
It
um,
totally is. Absolutely.
yeah. then and then lastly, so again, more body horror weird shit, but more recently, a few years ago, I saw the movie A Field in England, which is directed by Ben Wheatley, and it's really wonderful. It's in black and white. It takes place during like the British Civil War, so it's like kind of like a period piece. I don't even know if you'd call it horror. It's like weird, surreal, kind of magic stuff. It's really hard to describe, but there's a scene where a character, it's hard to describe it because it's sort of the tone of the movie. It doesn't prepare you for like what's going to happen. Like this character is suddenly like brought into this tent by this antagonist, and he's like screaming, and you don't know what's happening. Like, is he being like assaulted or violated or something? You don't know what's happening, but it's something awful. And um, he suddenly like reappears from the tent with this like sickening like glazed smile on his face, and like tied up like on a leash or something. And it's like this there's like not much score in the movie. It's like kind of renaissancey, classical guitar, pretty minimal as far as I recall, but all of a sudden it bursts into this like beautiful and dark like ambient synth piece, while this guy has just got this insane smile, and it's like, what just happened? Like, he was something awful just happened to this guy, and he just reappears with this like crazed look on his face while this music is playing, and I'm not doing it any justice. It just really comes out of nowhere, and there's no real explanation for what happened to him. But I just remember it hitting and just being like, I don't even know like what to feel right now. This is This just like feels so fucked, but it's so beautiful also.
Damn.
Yeah, so I can't recommend that one enough.
I've never heard of it. And honestly, you sold it because I am completely pulled in. Like I think it might have even been Nick that I was talking to, where it's just every once in a while you have those movies where, it's just, whatever the feel is for the whole movie, and you're 45 minutes in, an hour in, and then something just very abrupt happens and it just takes you completely out of, even the whole previous hour of what you watched. Like, holy shit, how did this come to this? How did this happen? I love that. That's awesome. It's called The Field in England.
A Field in England, yeah. It's definitely like weird, and you kind of just have to roll with it in terms of what the movie's about, what's happening. You kind of like it's normally it's the thing that annoys me. You kind of like can't know what it's about without like reading an interview with a director or having like some like background about what are they called? Like mushroom circles is a thing, where they're like maybe portals to like parallel worlds or whatever.
Okay.
I don't know, some kind of like early esoteric pagan stuff maybe. But yeah, I feel like I talk about that movie a lot. I'm sure my girlfriend is sick of hearing me talk about it, but I have not been as affected by seeing a movie like that for a long time. So
whoa, that's awesome. No, I'm sold.
It's explicitly like not horrifying, or it's not like directly horrifying. It's just like what you don't know, and just how sudden it is, and it's just like, my brain help me.
No, that's awesome. I'll have to check. Do you know, is it streaming on anything, or is it something that would have to be like if I just went online to buy it?
Oh, it's definitely. I mean, you might have to pay to rent it at this point. It was on Prime maybe, but it might be on HBO or something now. I'm sure it's definitely, at the very least, you could like rent it streaming, but it's definitely for a while it was streaming on, and it actually might be on Shudder. Come to think of it.
Ooh,
but that guy's Ben Wheatley's awesome. He put out a movie this year called In the Earth, which was actually drew a lot
Shit,
comparisons.
that guy.
Yeah. He did Kill.
Oh, okay.
High Rise. He's done a lot of stuff. He's awesome. He's somebody I'm always really excited to hear about making new movies. So, yeah.
Damn. Okay, I'm familiar with In the Earth. I guess I maybe I've heard the name, but I didn't know anything further so much with a Field of England. You said that came out a few years ago.
Field of England, I think, came out 5 or 6 years ago, maybe longer ago. I don't know for sure. But The Earth actually drew a lot of comparisons to A Field in England.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you dug that, you might dig Field in England. So.
Dang. Awesome. No, I love that. That's sweet. I've never, I've never, I guess I've heard of that movie, but I haven't seen it. And I will definitely be checking that out today for sure. I got to check that in. All right, moving on to an Intrusion. All right, so I've been really excited, upon my first watch, especially the music of it. The score was something, that really drew me into, wanting to dig further into it. Initially, I wanted to touch on here, how were you introduced to an Intrusion and Nick and this whole process? How did that come about?
Well, I'd known Nick for a while because I don't know what came first, but he actually booked Like Red in Detroit 10 years ago or something. But he was in a band called Sunlight's Bane, who were kind of like a blackened metalcore black metal band. He sang in that band, and I recorded their LP many years ago, and had a great time with him then. More recently, he started like a synth goth band called Love Under Will. And with that one, Sunlight Spain was like, a typical band setup, guitars, drums, bass, vocals. With Love Under Will, it was a lot more, it was all synth and drum machine stuff. And I pretty much produced all of that. I mean, he had vocal melodies and song structures, and sort of the baseline stuff in mind, but then I kind of fleshed it all out and made it into, you know, the songs that they are. So I think because of that, he knew that I could make noises with synths, and stuff like that, and I could come up with stuff, you know, I could on the fly. So yeah, he's also in another awesome band called Wounded Touch that I recorded I think a year ago, or at least earlier this year. But yeah, he hit me up and was like, I'm making a movie, and you know, would you be interested in scoring it? So, which I was super nervous about because I had never done that before. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, it came at kind of a point, sort of tricky, because it's like, well, I'm gonna have to like fit this into like my schedule, but you know, as long as you don't have any like really, you know, tight deadlines, like I can make this work, or I'll try. So
Totally. Okay. Were there earlier, you know, inspirations or notes given, or you know, conversations that just went into when you started actually fleshing out ideas?
so he sent me the script, and I think most of the shooting had been done by then, but almost none of it had been really edited into scenes yet. But he sent me the script, and then he sent me, you know, he referenced a handful of scenes, and then said like, you know, something that feels like this, and it would either be like a band, or an existing score that he didn't want replicated, but sort of like the vibe. So
Sure.
I know he definitely referenced John Carpenter, and he definitely referenced a piece that was in The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Yeah, so kind of just like a lot of drones, specifically not wanting to do like a real synthy, you know, like a lot of like horror stuff is really done like the throwbacky kind of like trying to make it sound
Retro
like
80s type feel.
yeah, exactly. So he specifically did not want that, but did want noisy electronic elements and drone kind of stuff. So, but he left it pretty wide open from there. So, yeah, it was just sort of like, here's the script, here's some basic ideas I have for inspiration, but whatever you want to do.
Damn. Okay. So with this being, I mean, it's a new process. It's something that you've never done before. I mean, obviously, you're cognitive musically and recording and different things and production wise. But what were, you know, first steps, or what were first, you know, kind of leaps into, you know, progressing into achieving goals with this initially?
Well, at first, going off of that initial email, I just started like making little snippets of music. So I would just like make little drones, and, you know, just try to make stuff that sounded atmospheric. And, you know, having read the script and then thinking about like, okay, you know, again, just really going off my imagination, but like something that sounds like this. Okay, let's try that. And I just send him a handful of things. You know, let me know if any of this is on the right track. And, you know, he actually liked almost everything I sent him. And then eventually, once scenes started trickling in, he had actually used a handful of the pieces I had sent him as sort of like temporary music in the scene. So then it was just a matter of like, okay, I need to stretch this to fit what's happening, or make alterations to the piece so that it sort of matches up with some of the beats that are happening in the scene with actions or dialogue or whatever. So yeah, it was kind of, and then just kind of more stuff came in, and then eventually it was like, okay, well, eventually there's going to be scenes that don't have anything for them yet, and then it was just a matter of like, you know, just kind of I would just watch it over and over again and dick around with a keyboard or a guitar until something sort of felt right. And then once that kind of caught, just kind of try to flesh it out from there. But it was all just sort of discrete scenes or short sequences. I actually didn't even see the whole film front to back until it was like out.
Oh wow!
Sort of crazy. But yeah, just kind of piecemealed it like that. And it was a slow process, and it was like a lot of stuff to make. You know, I think I really underestimated like how much. You know, you just have to like make an album basically. You know, like a full. You know, it's not just like a handful of pieces and they kind of get sprinkled throughout. It's like no, you basically have to like compose and record. You know, the equivalent of like a 45 to 60-minute album at least, you know.
Jeez.
But yeah, it was a cool challenge, and yeah, it was fun. It's fun to just make noises too, and just be more exploratory, especially in the beginning phases of it, and you know, see what stuck. So.
Well, do you remember what the first may be actually used in the movie, or you know, if you ended up scrapping it, but the first thing that you know kind of came to where you know it felt like you were off the ground running, as far as you know, just maybe may it be a jingle or something that you actually fleshed out into a full like 5-minute track that you recorded?
The first one that there were a handful that I made that I don't know exactly what happened with them. I know one that I was really proud of early on that I felt I could go somewhere cool was it's the scene where Sam has a nightmare of his wife committing suicide. He finds her in the bathtub, and
Oh yeah.
there's like a kick sound with a delay, and it's this Roland drum machine that I have, and I just made a kick pattern and fed that into a tape delay, and just played with turning the feedback all the way up gradually on the tape delay so that it starts to self-oscillate on itself and turn into kind of a drone. That was fun because it just literally felt like an excuse to do an experiment and like, oh, what would it sound like if I just like screwed around with this for a little while? And then when I got the scene back and it's like, oh, okay, he's going to use it for this. Like, this is awesome. And then, okay, like, how can I put more into it to make this like feel scarier and more disturbing? So yeah, that's definitely one that I was pretty proud of. And I think, you know, again, came from just like a weird experiment, and then it ended up really working well for the scene. So
Yeah, damn, that's awesome. What as far as with you know mentioning like the Roland and what you know instruments that you used for this, were there items or certain things that you know that you brought on hand that maybe you had like a stick that you're using on a guitar or something that was maybe unconventional as far as with the approach, or was it mostly all instrumentally?
There were actually a couple of scenes. I know there's one where it's a scene where Sam, the main character, is driving, and it's I can't remember when it happens exactly in the film, but he's driving and he's like really unhinged, and that one was literally just I had an instrument cable plugged into distortion pedals and sort of creating like a little bit of a drone, and I was just sort of like randomly tapping my finger on the end of it, so sort of random little like buzzes.
Wow.
And then taking that and just manipulating it really heavily in Pro Tools with just like putting delays and kind of building more layers underneath it, but then it's just sort of this like errant like kind of sound happening, but sort of, you know, you're your neurons are like firing sporadically,
right.
or like snap or something. So that again, that was like just another one that was like an experiment. Like, can I just like take something really simple like this and build a piece out of it?
Love that.
Yeah. So it was a lot of stuff like that. Most of the guitar stuff I did was like pretty. The one thing that I did weirdish with the guitar was I think it's like the last home invasion scene where the attacker is like, he's in the house and he's like attacking Joyce and the daughter, and I made like a weird pulsing drone on a synth, and then I had a guitar and I just tuned the strings like super randomly, and I was just playing like nonsense and just like really freewheeling, making a bunch of gnarly noise. And then I just like chopped up all the noise into little segments everywhere, and I would randomly like reverse them or put little effects, and it just became this really chaotic, gnarly thing. So a lot of the weirder stuff was just from manipulation after the fact. So just chopping things up and reversing things and putting weird delays and pitch shift on little elements, and yeah, trying to make a lot out of a little, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like it's that much more impressive in the sense of it actually working, it actually being something where it's like, I have reversed half of these tracks. I have done this, but it somehow ends up cohesive too. Like, that's what's so fucking insane about hearing some of the, and I appreciate about hearing, like the behind the scenes stuff with this too, because you hear things and it's like, how do you do so much manipulation and chop and skew in a sense, and it still, somehow works like that. That's awesome. And I mean, that's a testament, that's sweet. And it's great work. It sounds awesome. And the particular moment you mentioned him driving and it kind of sounding like, it's like all the sparks going on in his brain. This dude's about to fucking snap, it's like subliminally, that's there.
Right on.
Don't know if it's, it was intentional or not, but that's kind of how it felt, this guy's about to lose all of his shit right here. Was there a particular moment, in scoring where maybe a scene that you were hung up on, and this isn't in the sense of like a dig on the work, but just something where it was like, man, what do I maybe the feel wasn't right and it took a couple of tries to get what exactly you were looking for?
Some of the calmer scenes where it was just sort of like, okay, we're just it's Sam and his coworker talking, or he's at the police station and it's not particularly tense yet. It's just sort of like it's going to get tense, but it's not really there yet. And those were tough because it was sort of like, well, I can't tell. It's hard to, and also just looking at it as discrete scenes, not as part of like, working on it in small chunks like that, as opposed to being able to like, okay, well, we're coming out of here and it feels like this, and now we're here, like what should be the arc of that, not really having that context to build off of made it especially difficult. So yeah, a lot of those were just sort of like, well, that was moments where I was just like, just turn knobs and make noise until something like maybe starts to feel right. And seeing it in context, I feel like it pretty much works. Some of it I may have dialed back a little bit if I had some more context. But I'm still happy with what's there. So yeah, I can make scary, tense sounding stuff for days. Yeah. But then here's like people just talking, and there needs to be still something happening, and it's like it's hard to like kind of rein it in and come up with something that belongs there. But
I don't want this sounding like Seinfeld now. What am I need to tone
down
right. The slap bass a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's like a pleasant conversation. you know, like,
Right.
that's not gonna
A
work.
little overwhelming for what's going on. Shit.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
No, that's cool. That's cool. I love that. All right. Lastly, here, and we're touching on it's just short of 2 hours here, so I'm just gonna wrap on this here. In talking score, some favorites of yours, through movies that you've seen throughout the years, something that comes to mind as far as scores in movies that resonate with you. What come to mind as some favorites of yours?
You know what? I feel like kind of a poser because I feel like only in recent years, I mean, prior to scoring the film, but only in recent years have I really like paid more attention to scores outside of the like obvious stuff like John Carpenter. Um, but I do remember really being moved by the Arrival score.
Oh my God. That
Yeah,
movie is so good.
yeah. I mean, and that was a guy, the late great Johan Johansson, who I was familiar with even outside of like the scoring world. Like that maybe is evidence to how like little I was like clued into stuff because I knew some of his work just from his own releases,
Mm-hmm.
and then I saw his name in the credits, and I was like, oh, he scores movie too, and it's just like, yeah, no shit, he's scored like, Maggie and like all these. I think he did
Yeah.
all these like incredible things.
Yeah.
But that was one that I was like, I remember specifically being like, oh, this is cool. It's like, it feels sort of like, like I don't want to say tribal, like, is that, I don't want to sound like, you don't want to say like primitive or something condescending, but it feels like a very
Yeah.
like a tribal, cultural music form like that, but then mixed with like drones and synths and sort of like almost like ululating vocals and stuff. It feels very much like it's trying to do that. Like these are advanced beings, but there's something very like natural about it too. It's
Mm-hmm.
organic. It's not just like big metal spaceships. They show up in like crazy rocks. Glowing beacons everywhere. But so it's got to fit in that world between like being futuristic and sci-fi, but also this very like organic, uh, natural feel. And then also listening to it, I this was confirmed years later, but I was like hearing like vocal elements in the score, and I was like, that sounds like the guy from Lichens, which is like the solo project of this guy Robert Ike Aubrey Lowe, who's like a very celebrated musician, artist guy. Okay, cool. And it sounded like his voice in the score, and then years later, I found like a behind the scenes making of, and it's there he is doing like vocal.
Whoa, no
stuff.
kidding.
Yeah, so he does a group called a
Damn.
solo thing called Lichens that's really wonderful. Yeah, that would be one.
Wow.
Definitely that score. An early one that I do remember,
Yeah.
and again before I was really paying attention to scores, was in Hellraiser. The theme to it,
Oh yeah.
and specifically in Hellraiser 2, when they go into hell, there's like this like ominous, I don't know, it's like an organ kind of sound that like boom boom boom. It literally just sounds like here's the sound, here's what you hear in hell.
Yeah.
It's like this very simple repeating, it's almost like a foghorn or something from like, yeah, literally from hell. And that's a sound that I remember feeling very scared of when I was little and saw that movie.
Probably still today. Shit, if you put that on,
Yeah.
that's there. No, it's funny too because I mean, myself, I've been into horror since probably even before being a teenager. I've always just liked, the scary aspect and just how certain things can affect you, differently than others. Something being in your face, something, the unknown of not actually seeing what's happening, and honestly, it's been probably the last maybe like 5 or 10 years, I guess, that score has actually been something that I've, paid attention to more than just, oh, this sounds cool, kind of
Yeah,
looking into. So I don't think, it's definitely, I mean, not a knock on your part of being like, it's not an element that was overly, upfront obvious to me. For the longest time, a score to me was Jaws. Like that was like
yeah, totally.
one of the only things that ever really stuck out to me. If somebody mentioned, the jingle, I'm like, I don't know of Children of the Corn. I'm like, I don't know. Is it good?
Right, right.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I completely feel you there. That's something too that I feel like I pay a lot more attention to, and even more so, I think with these interviews too, and being able to speak with production designers and editors and people that are involved in all of the walks of film as well as music, and engineers and different things like that too. So I appreciate this shit all the more, and even the conversation like we had today, and hearing some of the insight and approach on your work. It's just been awesome, man. I double the time I asked also, so I greatly appreciate it. I know that you're so busy, and this has been absolutely amazing, Andy. Thank you so much, man.
hey, happy to do it, man. Had a really good time having rapping with you here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, if you want to let everybody know, kind of what you have going on here, and then we'll sign off here. What you have coming up or might be working on.
All right. I have a band called Like Rats. We put out a record almost 2 years ago, and we played one show on. But check that out. Death Monolith. I work at a studio called Bricktop Recording. Um, my handle. Well, you're seeing me here. Andy Haybro is my handle for everything. So yeah, man. I'm just making records and buying records, and just trying to live here.
And hopefully
During
scoring something else.
Say it again.
I said, and hopefully scoring something else. That would
If something comes
be
out,
awesome.
I would be happy to do it. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it was a cool learning experience, and I would absolutely do it again. So, yeah.
Awesome. Look, man, this has been absolutely great. Like I say, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
you stay healthy and stay safe out there.
Thanks.
And be good, my man.
All right. Likewise.
All right. Take care.
You too. Peace.
Bye.
Cool.
He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi a horror guy. Yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.